we can look at ourselves and our history. Well, that was an interesting movie. Mm-hmm. And it brings me to where I am now. And, you know, then if we can have that attitude and be grateful for it, even with all its difficulties, then it's just an enjoyable movie, and we can have more of an aesthetic experience of it, which is a little bit removed from the total pain of it. Then we don't suffer. We feel pain, but we don't suffer in the way that our mind is just really tortured by it. This, to me, is the difference between suffering and pain. Pain is okay. Pain is something that can teach us a lot and that we can absorb. Suffering is something unnecessary that we do in our mind. You know? And we think, oh, I feel pain, so I must be bad. Or, you know, the whole tendency is that we either blame others or we blame ourselves. And this is what causes suffering. If we let go of that and just experience the reality of the pain, then it becomes something else, you know. So all of that you're talking about is a kind of craziness, isn't it, that we all have. It is a kind of craziness, and the crazy thing is that in all cultures, there are various ways of suppressing it, not showing it. You know, I'm not supposed to have these difficulties and pains and so on. But if we don't acknowledge it and deal with it inside, then it becomes really stuck and it becomes really big problems. I mean, Devji and I have talked recently a little bit about this, you know, that the world is really crazy. The world is a crazy place. We might as well face it. My teacher said that, you know, the earth is the Bellevue of the universe. Bellevue was the biggest mental hospital in New York City. So, and I mean, and that's not saying anything disrespectful about human beings, but the tendency is just so strong to get stuck in the ego and deny and repress. And I just saw this on Facebook, and I thought it was really funny. Evenings at 7 o'clock in the parish hall. Yeah, this is a church in America. And there's some difference between Americans and Europeans. You know, Americans are very upfront and everything is talked about. In Europe, everything is a little more secret. But the similar thing here in Europe. But here, this is a church, and this is their weekly program. Monday, Alcoholics Anonymous. Tuesday, abused spouses. Wednesday, eating disorders. Thursday, say no to drugs. Friday, teen suicide. Saturday, soup kitchen. Sunday sermon at 9 a.m. And the sermon is about America's joyous future. You know, it's almost as if somebody made it up. But unfortunately, this could be, and maybe is, you know, a case. So you have all of these. When I lived in Norway, I lived for a while out in the suburbs, very rich suburbs, a lot of money. Everybody on the surface looked happy, and there were families, and you know, they were going about their normal business. And then one person who came to meditate there, she was a foot specialist. She did people's feet. She talked to everybody about everything. That's partly what people came to her for treatment, that they wanted to talk. You know, so they told her all of their secrets, and she knew everybody. And she said, well, there is not a single family in any of these nice houses who don't have some of these problems. And where does that come from? You know? Why do people end up so crazy that they have to become alcoholics, that they have to have, you know, violence, physical or emotional? Why do all these things happen? Well, I think it's because you don't go to a deeper level. We are not taught in school or by our parents when we grow up that we can actually go inside, we can feel these things and we can deal with them and we can let go, and there is something deeper there. I mean, I never heard about it. I did have some experiences when I was a little kid, you know, that made me think, well, gee, there's more to life than this. But most people don't really have that, and then you get on automatic and you just go ahead and you start acting out all of these fears and worries. And, you know, people do so many things to each other out of unconsciousness. It's not being conscious. So, but at least we, in this practice or any other powerful practice, we can learn to be conscious and take responsibility for our own state, and hope that that inspires others around us to do the same. And at least it will clarify the picture. And sometimes it means that we, you know, have less to do with certain people in our lives because there's not much there to really share. But we can, you know, really have a sense of transformation. All of these things that we get stuck in from the past can become more clear in our awareness. I mean, this happened when I met my teacher, Rudy. I just became so aware that, oh, I have this tremendous pain in my heart. I have this amazing sadness, you know, which hasn't really gone away. It has just become transformed from something I was stuck in, and that would have led to alcoholism and all kinds of crazy things, to something that I actually enjoy. I enjoy my own sadness. So what? It's nice. I'm sad that my father died early. I'm sad that my teacher passed away. But it's not a sadness that makes me, you know, feel fear or anger or stuck in it. It's an energy flow. It's my humanity. We have to be able to feel all of it. And then from that, we have to be able to communicate clearly and as nicely as we can. I think I told the story on the Felsentor a few times when, you know, I had this kind of superficial relationship with my mother, and I always thought of her as she's just a stupid woman, you know, who really doesn't understand anything, and she's conservative, and she was living in Brooklyn, and I had started practicing with Rudy. And I suddenly realized one day when I was sitting in meditation, I said, you are the problems to myself. She's not a problem. She is just herself, and she's wonderful. She loves you unconditionally, which she did. And I said, well, you know, and I was a hippie. I was like, you know, thinking that I really was cool, you know. But when I realized that, I said, well, I'm just going to go and do something very counterintuitive, something that goes against my ego, that makes me rise above my ego. So I bought a bunch of flowers, I went out to her, I cut my hair, and I told her how much I love her, you know, despite anything. I mean, she was not perfect, and she wasn't afraid to admit it either. She had a lot of sense of humor, which I didn't. So, but it was wonderful because by doing that, she really just opened up and she was so grateful, and our relationship became totally different after that, you know? So these are things that we can do. We can notice how we get stuck into certain patterns, and then we can say, well, okay, what can I do about that? Well, I can, first of all, change my own state and my own attitude towards it. And then this thing really works. When you change in yourself, somehow the universe hears it, and it has an impact. So, you know, even though the planet is generally crazy, and it will continue to be so, we're not going to be able to change that. But we can change ourselves, you know. And by doing that, we are at least contributing to a positive wave in the whole system. And what happens is, for me at least, I just feel more and more and more and more compassion for other people. I really do, because there's so much pain and there's so much, you know, that people have difficulty dealing with. And at the same time, everybody is the same. Everybody is basically spiritual light. That's what we are.